Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold it up one more time.
Okay. There we go.
Just want to make sure. Thank you. All right.
Are they good?
Yes, the meeting of the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners is now called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Fretham,
Here.
Modis Castillo,
Here.
McDonough,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Here.
Carter.
Here. Thank you very much. Commissioner Reinhardt, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance while the rest of us go on mute?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that pledge. The agenda of our November 24th, 2020 meeting is before you. I would just like to share that before we take action on item number 1, approving today's agenda, I want to note that in particular for the public, the proposed agenda item that is number 3 was to be a public hearing for unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly known as UAVs or drones, sponsored by the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. State law requires that before purchasing or using a UAV, the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office must provide an opportunity for public comment and input on its written policies and procedures for use of UAVs. The state further requires that this board must also provide an opportunity for public comment through a public hearing at a regularly scheduled meeting. Proposed agenda item number 3 was to be that public hearing today. Some weeks ago, in response to a board member's request to confirm that the Sheriff's Office would share public comment on the purchase and use of UAVs with the board, the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office responded that the office would utilize the same public comment process as it used when it proposed to purchase and use body-worn cameras. That was a process that proactively engaged the community. Unfortunately, at this point, commissioners have no evidence that such a process, a proactive process, was used in this case. And as of last Thursday morning, prior to posting today's agenda, the clerk reported that no public comment had been received. At that point, the chair believed, and I still do today, that we would need to facilitate postponing today's public hearing until a date yet to be determined to allow the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office to engage in a public comment process that closely resembles that which was used for body-worn cameras. The chair instructed the county clerk's office to indicate on the published board agenda for today the likely possibility that this public hearing would not occur today. And at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to amend item number 1, our proposed agenda, to postpone the public hearing for unmanned aerial vehicles referenced on the proposed agenda as item number 3 to a date not yet determined. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. There is a motion and thank you. Thank you very much for the motion and second. I would like to share that if anyone has shown up for the purpose of commenting on the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office intended use of UAVs, we apologize for any inconvenience should the motion to postpone pass. We strongly encourage you to please share your comments with the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office on the Sheriff's website link and other methods currently posted for public comment or that may become available. We also want you to know that our county clerk's office will publicly notice the new public hearing once a date is determined according to our process and procedures for conducting and noticing public hearings. That said, we have the motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk then please call the roll?
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye. Thank you. The motion to amend the agenda and postpone the public hearing has passed. We have the minutes of the November 17th meeting before you.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. Any discussion? Will the clerk then please call the roll?
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye. Thank you very much. The minutes of November 17th have passed. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to County Manager O'Connor for our COVID information. County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this week is just the COVID information, not a full update. The information is linked to here in the board packet with the dashboard. The trends from last week would continue forward into this week. Just two quick points of note. We'll be back next Tuesday to discuss for the first time vaccinations and the positive news that we are hearing from the federal level about now 3 potential vaccines coming into emergency authorization. This is good news, and it's going to be important that we take the good news and temper it with the reality of the timelines and the prioritization for vaccination. It will not happen overnight. This will be one of the largest logistical challenges our country has faced in a long, long time. And while I believe that we will ultimately see success across our community, it will take all of us helping to ensure successful distribution occurs, and that trust in a vaccine is a part of that in all corners of our community. So we'll be back with Dr. Lynn Ogawa and Deputy County Manager Kathy Hadeen next Tuesday to begin what will become a regular conversation. It's a good pre-Thanksgiving note to get to share, though, that while there remains many challenging months ahead, we do see for the first time, as I believe the governor put it, a light somewhere off at the end of this tunnel. The other update I would like to give as a more immediate challenge in front of us is that we are now accepting medically trained staff through the National Guard as part of our support model at the Ramsey County Care Center. This has been happening around the state at various facilities, and it gets to the level of challenge that we are seeing on the staffing side. We appreciate the state's support in helping to ensure that we are able to continue to serve people in need of support and care, and we appreciate our Guard members for being a part of this emergency response. This is the first time we've hit that threshold, and I just wanted you to be aware of it today. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd stand for any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at our participant list, and I see no questions at this point in time. I want to thank you for providing us with the update. We know we have a number of things on our agenda today. Certainly, this is a turning point as the country moves toward the potential availability of a vaccine, and I certainly appreciate that our staff is planning a series of updates in that regard to share information with us about a potential vaccine so that our community is able to move forward toward that opportunity. I see no questions from board members. And so with that, we will share in a moment of silence focused on our COVID response issues and concerns in our community, including illness, economic concerns, and other concerns that currently exist around racial equity and equity for all. Thank you. A moment of silence, please. Thank you for that moment. We'll move on then to our administrative items, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move item number 5, which is the agreement for 633 Easy Hotline Answering Services, which is for our recycling and out of public health. Number 6 is the certification of property assessed clean energy, the PACE charges for energy improvements. Number 7, alignment of Wilder Square Apartments project with conduit bond for affordable housing policy. And number 8, which is the September 2020 report of contracts, grants, and other payments.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you. And all of our administrative items have passed. We have a couple of policy items on the agenda. The first regarding the new continuum of care. I'll turn to County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Oh, I see her here now. Apologies just for a second there. I have Deputy County Manager Joanna Berg, who's going to kick off this part of the presentation. I'll turn it right over to her.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I am delighted this morning to be here to introduce Mary Kay Bailey, Principal with MK Bailey Consulting, and Ellen Waters, Principal with Ellen Waters Consulting, who have been working with us on the new continuum of care, the redesigned Heading Home Ramsey that we will be launching in January. So they will be providing an update on that work underway. I just want to highlight this is really a moment of opportunity for us all as we look at the new Housing Stability Department and our opportunity to better coordinate and infuse resources into a focused housing stability direction. So with that, Ellen, I will turn it over to you.
Great, welcome. Thank you, Commissioners, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to provide a very brief update on what has been a body of work that has been going on for over a year, which is around the important and growing crisis of homelessness in our community. And I want to start by thanking and acknowledging the county in your leadership. Really, over the last 9 months with the COVID pandemic, the county has stepped up in ways really I can't imagine we would have thought of a year or 2 years ago. It's really been impressive, the creativity and the commitment to finding options for people experiencing homelessness. So briefly, we want to describe the work that's been going on that's really designed to align well with the new housing department and with the initiatives that the county has undertaken over the last several months. And I'll encourage you to please follow along on the PowerPoint that was included in your deck. First, the context, this is slide number 2, is certainly this is nothing that you don't all well understand. For several years, we've seen a rising tide of homelessness, particularly unsheltered. More recently, we're hearing reports of significant numbers of families, even more than before, that are on the streets living in cars. We know that there are drivers that are macro drivers of this, including low wages, higher unemployment, particularly for our Black, Indigenous, and people of color, which homelessness, like COVID, affects more disproportionately. We know our housing supply has not kept up. So it's a perfect storm of all of those factors that are driving the situation we find ourselves in today. But if you go to the third slide, you'll see that HUD back in 2009 thought that the ways for communities to address homelessness was through the creation of what they call a continuum of care. And this continuum of care has for the last several years operated in Ramsey County as Heading Home Ramsey. And the vision of HUD and what we have found by looking at communities across the country that have done well with this model is that you have a very broad kind of collective impact strategy that involves the public sector as well as a host of nonprofit and other institutional partners that are all focused on a single mission, that have aligned strategies that work together and attract both federal and state dollars as well as philanthropic dollars. In Ramsey County, we have found over the last 3 years since Mary Kay and I began consulting on behalf of the St. Paul Foundation and working closely in particular with Commissioner McDonough and County Manager O'Connor, we have found that there have been gaps and silos in how the system has been established. And what we have attempted to do is to bring the high-level leadership that was effective with an external partnership called Outside In, bring what worked about Outside In into the formal continuum of care. Rather than operating outside of it, we think it's essential that these efforts all come together, and those important elements of high-level leadership, meaning elected officials and senior appointed officials who have policy and resource decision-making authority, be engaged in this work. And that's not what had happened with Heading Home Ramsey. And as a result, we've also seen that Heading Home Ramsey has been unable to get all of the dollars that it was due through the HUD allocation. There are some reasons for that. There's some gaps, there's some policy issues, and there's frankly some leadership, some bully pulpit issues that we believe this new redesigned continuum of care can address. And so that we can leverage all of the resources possible from federal and state authorities to bring to bear on the situation in our community. And that it also includes having very clear expectations about who's doing what, where is their accountability, and what is the mission to get things done in a real-time way. Commissioner McDonough has been clear as we launched this redesign effort a year ago that the new continuum of care for Ramsey County has to be bold, that it can't be saddled with what didn't work in the past, and that has to move forward very nimbly. It has to move forward in concert with the city and with other communities across the county. And so that's really what we have been trying to do. The next slide describes the structure, and I don't want to scare anyone with this structure, but to briefly describe that it's intended to represent what HUD requires, which is this very broad, the top full COC membership, which is really essentially the community, that this needs to be a community response to ending homelessness. But how we envision doing that is through a high-level governing board, which will have designated seats, and I'll briefly touch on that has those high-level leaders with policy and decision-making authority, as well as a steering committee that are the folks on the ground who really know what's happening and who really can hone in on the solutions that they believe will make a difference. And so this structure that we are going to launch in January is designed to do that. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that in addition to creating a structure, we've spent a lot of time with a whole host of partners developing a set of governing documents that are pretty dense. So I don't want to also scare you by encouraging you to look at them in detail, but they provide important clarifications around who's responsible for what and how is this continuum actually going to function? How is it going to lead these community conversations? This continuum needs to be the focal point for everything about homelessness in Ramsey County. This continuum with the support of the county should be the place that the public goes, that leaders go, that community members go to, where people experiencing homelessness go to find resources and get connected. That's the vision that we're building toward. So we have a charter which functions sort of as bylaws. We have expectations and charge for the two leadership bodies, the governing board and the steering committee. And a new element is MOU between the county, which has been designated as the lead applicant and collaborative, or lead agency and collaborative applicant for the continuum and the continuum. We've never had that before, and the intent of this MOU, which we frankly stole and studied from communities around the country, is so that the county is clear of what the continuum is looking for from it in terms of staffing, in terms of support, in terms of alignment with county priorities like the new housing office, as well as being clear from the county what it can expect the continuum to deliver. The continuum should be the primary way the county is addressing homelessness. So this deep, deep partnership is articulated in that MOU. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that the governance charter, as I said, it talks a lot about responsibility, how we're organized, how people are elected and serve on the governing board, what the roles and responsibilities are. So there's a lot of detail there that we have tried to think through all of the contingencies about what is going to make this effective. At the same time, we're trying to honor Commissioner McDonough's challenge to be sure that we're bold and nimble and flexible. If you go to the next slide, the lead agency and collaborative applicant MOU, this describes some additional detail about what is included in that MOU. And I would note that we have shared this a couple of months ago in draft form with county leadership, County Manager O'Connor. It has been reviewed by a county attorney. There are a couple areas that we're working through right now, and we expect and hope that that will be finalized in December so that when the new continuum launches, we're all clear and we can all sign off and say, yes, this is how we expect to operate as very close partners in this work. And then if you go to the next slide, this is, excuse me, the governing board is really the delegated authority. This is the board that will guide the overall work. And the county has 2 designated spots on that governing board. And so one of the things we're also hoping you will do soon is designate those spots. In our visioning, we're looking for that senior level leadership that's going to provide oversight, that's going to use data. We have a ton of data. You may not know this, but the Ramsey County Open Data Portal includes a ton of information. HUD requires a ton of information. We haven't really done a good job as a community in looking at that and figuring out what it's telling us and what do we need to do to move that data in the right direction. And so there's a lot of work that can be done, especially with our strong partnership with the county. And ultimately, the governing board will submit an application to HUD for funding, as well as attract some state dollars. And so the governing board is responsible for those funding decisions. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see that the governing board includes elected and appointed positions. So these 10 designated of about 21 to 25 seats. This is the structure that's been agreed upon, which includes 2 from Ramsey County, an elected official and a county or deputy county manager designated by you all as the county board. The city has similar requirements, and we have had conversations, and Commissioner McDonough has with the mayor's office, and they are firmly committed to participating at the highest level. Suburban cities, we have the mayor of Maplewood has already been selected by the Ramsey County League of Local Governments. The school district, the superintendent or his designee will participate. John Gutzman from the St. Paul PHA is committed. Pahua Hoffman from the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation is committed, and we're expecting to have a nominee from the Metropolitan Council. So you can see the array of elected and appointed officials that will have the kind of ultimate accountability. In addition, at our launch meeting on January 14th, another 12 to 14 individuals who are being recruited right now and will be voted on. There will be an election held on January 14th, will fill the balance of those seats on the governing board. And there will be a similar process for the steering committee, which I won't go into at this point. So that's how we're set up and what we are broadly designing this new continuum of care to do. Mary Kay is going to talk a little bit about the what. So what are we trying to do with this new work? And I should note that it's been challenging with COVID. We ideally would have had a board seated and they would have informed the direction and the strategic framework, but with COVID, it's been difficult to do that. So we've tried to work on parallel paths where we've had the structure being developed, the recruitment of individuals and entities to participate. At the same time, we're developing a framework so that the new entity can hit the ground running because homelessness isn't waiting. So Mary Kay, thank you. Please continue.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for having us this morning. We are now on slide 10. And so as Ellen was mentioning, as part of the redesign efforts, the working group that we've assembled.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Reinhardt. I know that you have some hands up, and I think before we move on some of the slides that we have, it would be good to be able to answer those questions.
Thank you. Let me check for a logical time. I did see the hands going up and plan to call on you in the order of your having raised your hands. Let me check in with the presenter to determine whether there is a wrap up in this area that is upcoming soon and a good time for those questions to come forward before the completion.
Thank you.
We have just 4 more slides. They are specific to the strategic framework. So if questions are narrowly focused on structure and governance, we could take them now, or we could just go ahead and wrap this up and take all the questions on this item at the end.
And thank you. I would prefer, unless there's an urgent need, to go through those 4 slides and then call on those who have their hands up. We'll do that and get to the questions quickly. Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Great, thank you, Chair. So given the COVID realities and the fact we haven't seated a new board, the strategic framework isn't meant to be a full-blown strategic plan, and it also isn't finalized. That's going to be the work of the new governing board to review it, to inform it, and to approve the final framework in the first quarter of the next year. What it does include is a well-vetted vision, mission, and value statement. It is our intention that the strategic framework is something that's updated at least every other year based on progress, trends, and emerging priorities. And we see the framework as being complemented by data and dashboards that will help the new governing board see the scope of the current situation around homelessness, where the system's making progress, and where there are bottlenecks. And in the future, we envision a COC, a continuum of care, that uses data to set performance targets and measure progress against those. On the next slide, 11, I'm just going to, since we don't have much time to share substance with you about the draft framework, I do want to share the vision, mission, and strategic directions. You can see that we have a vision to work together to create a community where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring, where we eliminate racial disparities, and where everyone is housed. The items that are in blue, we recently did an equity review of how well our preliminary documents were addressing racial equity, and those blue areas indicate recently added language. And then our mission for the new continuum is that we prevent and end homelessness by delivering effective, people-centered, and integrated responses that are racially equitable and driven by community voice, advocacy, and learning. And yes, living into these goals and the mission and vision are going to be challenging, and they're going to be a stretch, but that's what we are setting up for ourselves in this redesign continuum. On slide 12, this summary slide is to give you a taste of the substance of what is in this strategic framework. It basically is distilling pages of thinking where the working group identified areas where we wanted to have an impact in the next year and what kinds of blocks might be getting in our way and impeding progress. From that work, there were 7 strategic directions that were identified, and they're in the blocks that don't have the arrows. And we took those and distilled those into 3 overarching strategic directions. So when we talk about strengthening a holistic homeless response system, we're talking about one that more thoroughly pursues prevention and diversion as strategies so that people don't end up in our homeless response system. We're talking about one that makes sure our community has more dynamic information about available services and resources. In the second area, engaging in collective coordination for impact, we're talking, I'm sorry, dog is not happy. We're talking about a system where we're pursuing efforts to increase our funding from HUD. We're developing multidisciplinary teams to respond to emerging issues and to make improvements to our system. In the third area, we're talking about drastically increasing shelter and housing supply. We know that a lot of new shelters coming online, and we want to make sure that we understand what policies, programs, and operational techniques are working best. And then on the housing side, we want to make sure that we understand and pursue strategies that encourage housing stabilization on the tenant side and landlord participation on the supply side. So just as there were dozens of slides preceding this one, there are quite a few that follow, which detail potential one-year actions for the COC, and that really will be the focus of conversation in the first quarter of 2021. So concluding on the last slide, I just want to wrap up with some important dates. As Ellen mentioned, we're really hoping that in early December, the county will be ready to appoint 2 governing board representatives and 1 to 2 lead staff who will serve on the steering committee. By the middle of December, we're hoping that the county can finalize its review of the MOU so that when the new governing board is established and its chair is selected, the county and the COC can co-sign that MOU. And then lastly, the first annual meeting of the new continuum is going to be on January 14th from 9 to 12. And as Ellen mentioned, those are meetings that are open to all that have an interest in preventing and ending homelessness. And at this first meeting, there's just a lot of preliminary business that needs to take place in terms of approving the governing documents, electing new members, and discussing the strategic framework. And we're also creating some opportunity to hear from those with lived experience, as well as getting a chance for our providers to talk about their work ahead. So again, everyone is welcome to that first meeting. And with that, I'll conclude. Thank you everyone for the time, and Ellen and I are here to take questions.
Thank you very, very much, Mary Kay and Ellen, and also to Deputy Manager Berg, who is on with us. My understanding, let me start off by saying, is that we are having some concerns with internet connectivity this morning. I am checking with our office to determine how they are monitoring and advice they would provide to us regarding that instability that has been experienced. We may resort to taking a brief break should we need to in order to resolve connectivity concerns. That said, I want to appreciate board members for holding your questions. Thankful for the presentation that we've had. It's a lot to chew on. There is great interest at this time as we are focusing our efforts and resources on preventing and ending homelessness. It makes sense to have a picture of what currently exists, how the work that is in process can be brought together, and to have the opportunity to ask questions of those who have been working dedicatedly in this arena in order to present the strategic framework. So again, thank you. I have a number of questions coming forward. As we begin the first, I'll be looking to the county manager to determine what we should do about any service disruption.
Madam Chair.
So that said, yes, go ahead. Thank you, County Manager.
Apologies. Madam Chair, Commissioners, we are aware of a service disruption. It's listed right now on Granicus's website. Granicus is the third-party vendor that the county and city use to broadcast the live feed. It's happening through that end. So we are hearing you fine here. I would imagine the ultimate recording will also be fine based on the idea that things are working on our end. However, I can't fully be assured of that. We could take a pause and better understand what'll happen, but there's a part of this where it's outside of our ecosystem, and so I'm not sure that we can necessarily address it, but we could get a better answer on how the recording will function if you want to take a 5-minute break.
That said, I think it would be worth our checking in during those 5 minutes prior to turning to our questions. And I want to apologize to commissioners for that brief delay, but want to be certain that our connection is one that allows us to memorialize this discussion in the way in which we should. So let's call that 5-minute break. It is 9:36. Let us come back on screen at 9:41. And with that, we are recessed for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Happy Tuesday.
You just got to roll with it.
Will you flip back to me? If she goes to you for closing remarks, I just want to thank a couple of people. So if you can flip back to me before you wrap up.
No.
I hear you all. Thanks for working it out.
So she'll flip back to you. That worked out well. The way they light is changing because it's like up above and down below, and that's not clearly signed nor indicated, and it would be a helpful thing, I think, long term, just so we're all aware. I have a feeling if you're like all past here, you're probably okay. But this has been something else. All night. And without as many people. We're ready to end it. Deanna just sent me a quick text at the end of Friday. It's not because it's
Tony, I was just notified that when you called for the break, it started working again.
Well, but of course it would do that. Thanks for letting me know what was going on.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if you can hear us, we're all here and ready to reconvene with a little bit of information whenever you're ready to go.
Thank you. We'll take the next minute and get back in then. Right on 9:41. Thank you. We are back from recess. I wanted to make sure we took 5 minutes in case anyone had stepped out. Hoping, and here I am. So thank you very much for holding on your questions. We'll move directly into questions. I understand that the connectivity issue has been resolved. And so I will move to Commissioner. I'm sorry, County Manager O'Connor.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to clarify with you, I can't confirm for sure from Granicus that it's been resolved. It sounds like right now it's working better, but we do not have final confirmation that the disruption is necessarily done. What I would say to you, though, is we will be able to piece together the final video recording for the meeting either way so that the public will be able to watch it in its continuity in case you do get additional reports of it being spotty while we go. And so that is what we were able to confirm.
Thank you for that clarification, and we appreciate that we will be able to preserve this conversation, putting a video together of our conversation regardless of whether there is some additional disruption. I'll call now on Commissioner.
I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't hear who you were calling on.
It's
You broke
you.
up.
Thank you.
All right.
And
I was trying to read
thank
lips,
you
but I'm
for
not
your
very
work
good
in
at
this
that. But you just kind of bleeped out there right out when you were saying the name. Thanks, Chair Carter. First off, I want to thank Ellen and Mary Kay. They've just done an amazing job shepherding this through over the last 9 to 12 months and being a part of this actually for a number of years at the outside in and rush table. And I also want to recognize the community partners and their support as we've moved forward on this, including the leadership of the current Heading Home and their willingness to be able to work with us on, we're calling it a redesign, but really our goal here is to really position us for the future here on how to best address homelessness at this table. And I think we're well teed up for that, as you can see with the presentation that came from Mary Kay and Ellen today. A couple of things. A number of you may recall a workshop that we had well over 2 years ago with the Heading Home folks. And if your memory is the same as mine, there was a lot of frustration from the commissioners at that time with the bureaucracy and how slogged down it got, and not without good intentions. Every single person that's been a part of this has come to the table with their heart and mind. But the nature of the beast got to the point where when they showed us their org chart, they had to use a 2-foot by 4-foot board because they had just developed this bureaucracy that really, again, with good intentions to trying to address and meet the needs of our unsheltered and homeless population in our community, got us to the point where we were not even receiving all of our HUD funding because we weren't able to be flexible enough and responsive enough in our community. And this has really teed us up to do exactly what I think we all know at heart when we've got issues as dire as our unsheltered homeless population. You need decision makers at the table. You need the policy setters to be a part of that, not only to help shape the framework of the mission and accomplish the goals and set the strategies, but to take that work back to their organizations and help drive change within their organizations to meet those urgent needs and be consistent with that. And we demonstrated that time after time with Rush and Outside In that we can do that as a community. And you just seen a snippet of the organizations that were a part of that work and the leadership that was a part of that work. And once the full membership comes before this governing board in January, you will see the continued leadership from our community in this. And as Ellen and Mary Kay talked, I've been a part of this effort now going on 3 to probably 4 years. And working with everybody, the commitment is real. And I am confident that this redesigned Heading Home continuum of care organization that we will be moving forward with on January will be the table to be able to move things forward when it comes to unsheltered and homelessness. And one of the gaps, and I talk about this all the time, and people that have been at these tables, this is nothing new. But for us to really make change, for us to really be effective, we just can't come to that table and do good work at that table and then go back to our own organizations and do business as normal. We have to take that work that we're doing at that table and bring it back to our organizations. And Ramsey County, I want to give Ryan credit. I mean, I think Ryan might have been policy director when we started this work, and then he was deputy county manager, and now he's county manager. And to be able to be a part of this and watch this grow. But I mean, when Julia was county manager, she sat at that table and she made a commitment when the foundations would fund outreach workers that Ramsey County would find a way to sustain it. So it was not just another grant coming in, do some good work for a number of months and then lose the grant and we're done, right? And Julie did that. She moved that into the budget. We actually increased the budget and supported those outreach workers. And that's been the commitment from public housing and the Met Council and the city of St. Paul and Catholic Charities and Union Gospel and Listening House and Radius Health and all the players, right? You know them all. And actually, I want to recognize a few. Health Partners has been at the table. Health East, when it was Health East before M. Fairview, has been at the table, not only with support, but with money helping us move this forward. The foundations have been there, but it is time for us to move this into this continuum of care model where we can sustain it into the future with that same energy, that same type of support that we've been able to develop. So, Ellen, Mary Kay, thank you for your work on this. I know it's been a lot, and COVID has made it even harder, as you pointed out. So many times when we might have pulled together a face-to-face meeting to talk strategy, to talk things out, it became much more difficult. But the end product here that we're moving to and looking for that MOU and looking for those approvals, I'm confident that the community is going to recognize that as a bold step forward in helping us bring partners to the table to address this issue of unsheltered homelessness. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough, for the context of the work that's been happening over the past 3 or 4 years and for your leadership in that regard. I'll call in Commissioner Matas-Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner McDonough, for your work as well on this process to make sure that it's really robust. I want to go back to the comment that you gave a directive to be bold, nimble, and flexible, and which, of course, I think is the exact way we need to go. But then as you've laid out a structure, it's still pretty massive. So it might not be a 2x4 foot, but it's still a 2x2. And 25 people on an advisory committee seems huge. Now, I know there's a lot of partners, there's a lot of people that are invested in this work, and everybody wants a seat at the table. But I continue to be concerned as, is it going to be nimble and flexible enough? The other thing, when you have huge committees, we all know what happens, and then about 12 people continue to show up, and people will naturally fall off. And where does that put us in this work? And then my other question, and I'll let you respond or comment, is where in this executive structure, in the decision-making body, not just as an advisory or an ad hoc committee, but where do people who are currently experiencing homelessness fit? Because I know as policymakers, as people who are on the outside making decisions, we don't necessarily always fully understand or appreciate the nuances of someone who's experiencing homelessness. I had the opportunity to work at Safe Space over the weekend during intake. In a matter of 3 hours, it was very obvious that things that even I believed, and I've been deeply connected to this work, didn't necessarily pan out, right? And even in protocols and safety and those things, it doesn't necessarily apply when you're outside for 12, 15, 18 hours a day. And so I want to make sure that the voices of people who are experiencing homelessness are not just advising or on the peripheral, or we bring them in once in a while, but they're in the decision-making body. So with that, I'll stop and let you respond.
Thank you, Commissioner. Excellent questions. And I agree. I think when County Manager O'Connor was in one of our very early working group meetings, he suggested a governing board of 15 people. And then COVID hit and he had to step away. So clearly we needed his guidance and we ended up at 21 to 25. But there's some, that is not the ideal. There are some HUD requirements that make it sort of difficult to manage down. So we have tried to be really intentional, not only about the designated seats, because again, the thing that made Outside In and Rush successful was the engagement of policymakers, the people who can make things happen at a scale. So we wanted to retain that, but we do also need to be informed by people who are really close to the work. And so it is about finding a balance. And we also were really cognizant and are committed to ensuring that it's not the same old faces around the table, that we not only say in our mission and vision that we're committed to equity, but that we act it. And so that also creates opportunities for more people to be engaged. To the point around people with lived experience, that too has got to be a touchstone throughout this work. At the launch meeting in January, we have asked and have a number of our outreach partners and service providers who are committed to bringing people to that meeting, people with lived experience. We also like to have people have stipends, and we've got to figure that out with county staff, how to be able to compensate people for their time and their expertise. And we know it can be done. The regional work that was done by the State Office to End Homelessness was able to figure it out. So we just got to figure it out. On an ongoing basis, we're working with MICA and Street Voices for Change and groups like that, and we would love your help as well to identify folks who will sit at this table for the long term. And again, we got to compensate them. And so that does have to be important. At the same time, we're also aware of the delicacy of inviting people in. And so we have to be respectful and figure out how to address the power dynamics. I think it can be done, but it may be that it's not just coming to a meeting, that there are other opportunities to inform the work from the perspective of people experiencing it, or formerly people who have previously experienced it. And we have some folks already who are really good at calling us when we get out of line and we're up here and they're like, that's not how the real world works. So that is essential. And thank you. I watched, I followed on Twitter, you and Council Member Mitra in your adventure at the Safe Space. So thank you for doing that.
Tony, if I could add to that a little bit. Trista,
Go ahead.
Yep, Trista, I don't disagree with you. 25 seems like a large board. It is a large board. And I find myself when I'm on boards finding ways to try to downsize them to be flexible, nimble, and board, right? But I think, I've talked to, personally did outreach to a number of the folks that we are going to be a part of this. And I guess two things. One is when we started Rush, we started with the table that we identified right away, right? And that continued to grow because as we continued to do the work and it evolved into Outside In, we recognized we needed people at that table that weren't at that table. But we also recognized we needed the leadership and the decision makers, and I think that's the difference here. I've actually called and talked to these people. These are doers. These are people that are not looking to come to a meeting just to sit around the table and talk. They're looking to get to a table with their counterparts that are doers within their organizations to make change. And that will be the test, right, for us to make that work. And I think Ellen, has talked about the balance. There's HUD requirements. There are slots that need to be filled. There's community expectations about who's at that table and who can make a difference. And for us to be able to pull this together certainly would have been great. If it was 15, I think 25, when you look at the membership and who's at that table, it looks like it's a powerful board, and it's a board that's teed up to be bold, flexible, and nimble. But they're going to have to hold themselves accountable to being able to deliver on that. And I think the messages that we're sending in this conversation today, the way we've teed this up to be successful, we set it up for that. And my hope is, after a year, at the end of next year, when we kind of do a revisit here of how successful we are, we'll be able to demonstrate that board of 25 members have actually made a difference. And they were bold, and they were flexible, and they were nimble, because we had the people at the table that could make the difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for the question. Did you have anything to add on? Okay, I appreciate your coming forward with that question, which helps us to add another word to the bold, flexible, and nimble, and that would be and inclusive, as you spoke about not only the size, but also ensuring that we do have the people at the table who are needed and processes that help to ensure that on a long-term basis, the diverse and many voices of our community are heard, including and importantly, those who are experiencing homelessness. And thank you for your add-on, Commissioner McDonough, regarding the ways in which we will ensure that happens. I'm going to call now on Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This work is, the continuum of care work is really impressive. And I also look at, I appreciated Commissioner McDonough's comments and Commissioner Modis-Castillo, especially regarding the representation by people that, generally speaking, probably have been homeless, so that they understand what the system is and how they can work through it. If someone is currently homeless, they probably have other priorities to try to get shelter. But to have that voice there is going to be incredibly important. And I do think that, unlike some other boards or different things that are getting started, because this is a change, we're getting started, it takes people a little while to get motivated. I think this is going to be a group that is so motivated from the get-go that they're going to be bold and nimble and flexible, because they want to get this job done. And especially with, not only was it an issue before, and we were really trying to figure out how could we tackle it, but with COVID, it has escalated much more than well, who could have anticipated what was going to happen with COVID? So, that's not even a real issue. It's just that it's there and we need to deal with it. And we've got more attention on it now than we've ever had before on the issue of homelessness and the disparities within it. There's so many different moving parts to this. And that's how come I just looked at this and went, oh my gosh, this is comprehensive. It is sensitive to what needs to take place and the complexity of what is behind homelessness to begin with. The shortage of mixed income housing, affordable housing is one aspect of it, but there's much more complexity than just having supply. It's why people are in the positions they are in and trying to deal with the underlying issues. So the wraparound services, there is so much here, and I know that you all know that. So I think that we've got a group of people that when they come together, that they are going to be ready, motivated, and move as quickly as possible to try and deal with some of the issues that, especially for this winter, that will be in place. So that to me is one of the key factors here. One thing that I would like to, on page, I guess it is, of the slide 9, where it has a 10 designated governing body seat. Okay, let me try it again. 10 designated governing board seats. That for the suburban cities, I have no problem with Ramsey County League of Local Governments being who designates, but I would hope that at least one, and actually I would prefer 2 of them, be elected officials. We should be able to get mayors or city council members. We have 16 suburban cities, and I am so appreciative of Mayor Abrams from Maplewood stepping up and saying that she would like to be on this because this issue affects the entire community, the entire of Ramsey County. But Maplewood has been, with its proximity and just how big it is, has been impacted by this as well. So I would like it to actually say, like the others, so that it would be consistent, that it would be at least one. And as I said, I would prefer to have it be 2 elected officials designated by the Ramsey County League of Local Governments so that we can get the suburban voice, because it's not just about what's happening in the community, but how they can help with the issue. And so to have more than one elected voice there, the decision makers understanding the problem and being willing to step up and work with the entire continuum of care to be part of the solution as well, I think is going to be incredibly important. So that is the only change that I would like to see, so that it's very clear that we want the policymakers on the designated governing board seats. Thank you. And thank you for the wonderful work. It gives me a great deal of hope. So thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn to Mayor Allen for a response. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner. And I think that's an excellent point. So Mayor Abram she attended our introductory webinar and is all set to join. And they did discuss it at a league meeting. But if it's okay with you, Commissioner Reinhardt, I would love to follow up with the others and say that this issue was brought forward by you and see if we can get additional elected representation. If that's amenable to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And I knew that it would be amenable to Commissioner Reinhardt, and we look forward to hearing back on the designation for that particular category of suburban cities. Commissioner Fretham and then Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Chair Carter. One brief point and then a question. I'll just note that I'm having trouble accessing the embedded link to see the charter. So if that's something that perhaps Deputy County Manager Burr can forward to us on the board, I'd like to look at that. My question is related to this idea of silos, and there's certainly the one strategic direction or point about combating silos, but then it also seems to be embedded in multiple other objectives in terms of, I see terms like seamless and effective and collective and coordination that all speaks to this idea of silos and breaking them down. I'm wondering if there's been work to identify and understand what is leading to silos currently, and if you could speak to that, and if not, what is the plan to identify and document those? I know in past work talking about this that they can be varied. It can be about just personalities at the table. It could just be related to the complexity of the different groups that have joined in the absence of effective government coordination, but that sometimes it can also be a systemic issue related to statutory requirements and accessing funding at different stages of the game. So I'm just hoping to understand a bit more about what it is that has kept us from being able to do this work more collectively and how we plan to move forward from that, seeing as it's such a big piece of the strategic direction.
Thank you. And again, because of your work with us during this period of time, I'll check back in with Ellen.
And Mary Kay can join in too. I think it is all of the above, Commissioner. It is about sometimes competing priorities across funding streams, but sometimes it's the simpler things that have emerged just through practice that don't have a foundation in statute or in funding that can actually be easily addressed. And what we found, for example, with Outside In, is that sometimes It was simply the ability of senior leaders to shine a light on a particular issue that could cause change. So people get used to doing things the way that they always have, and then it becomes sort of informal policy. And sometimes that doesn't work anymore. It's outdated, or it doesn't reflect what's really happening in the real world. And so, kind of shining a light on those areas and bringing to bear just the attention of senior leaders, we found really got things done. And I think some other examples, and I'll give kudos to the county on this, is work that was begun last year where the county found that it was discharging people out of some of their existing systems into homelessness from detox or from other programs. It's like, that shouldn't happen. There's ways where through data sharing and just more intentional collaboration within the county, we can prevent some things from happening. Now, I think you bring up an excellent point, Commissioner, about we haven't really started to catalog that. I think in our voluminous notes, we've probably got 25 examples, but I think there is a process that we can intentionally go through to identify, okay, which are the most important. We've already spent a lot of time, and I know this has come up with the county in the past around coordinated entry policy. So that HUD mandated system, which is attempting to match individuals experiencing homelessness with housing, has some big challenges with it. And we've been able to figure out some workarounds. Sometimes those workarounds are creating other problems. It's like, well, let's maybe take a fresher look at that and, pull back from the way we've always done things and figure out what is actually going to work for the situation we find ourselves in. But Mary Kay, you probably have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, thank you. So in that summary slide of strategic directions, there are some potential action items for the governing board to consider, and several of them are very specific to the challenges around silos. One of them is this idea of data sharing. I think, as Commissioner Reinhardt mentioned, homelessness, yes, it is a lack of housing, but there are so many other conditions that often surround it. And when those conditions may be medical, the ability for our different service providers to collaborate to serve an individual are inhibited by HIPAA requirements and other rules that only let you share certain information. So we want to get very clear within our system about who can talk to each other, about who, about what, when is it appropriate, what kind of permissions are needed, because we see this barrier constantly. And I think to more effectively serve an individual, you have to have that team of individuals that is coming together, be able to talk to one another. There's another piece in there where we talk about creating these rapid response teams that are designed to engage around emerging or acute issues. And what can sometimes happen is that you'll either have a group of nonprofit service providers just working on tackling something, and they don't have their public sector counterparts. But again, because the issue of homelessness has so many parts, you need to have these integrated multidisciplinary teams tackling either big system challenges or the more on the ground immediate acute needs like the encampments we're seeing in and around downtown. And then I just think one other area that's going to be really helpful that is county specific is the creation of the new housing department. I mean, as you all know, the county's housing work has lived in so many different places that alone has created such complexity of knowing where to go, where things live, who's in charge, that having a central point of contact that is really looking at housing along the continuum from preventing homelessness to having adequate supply is going to be really helpful. So great question, Commissioner, and something that I presume we're going to be working on the first year and longer.
Tony, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yep, Ellen and Mary Kay really did a nice job addressing your commissioner or your question, Commissioner Fetham. I want to add one thing that, from my perspective, because I can do that, right, is the biggest issue for silos is usually turf protection and status quo protection, right? And when leadership allows that to happen is when it develops and becomes a part of the system. And this table has been designed for leadership to not allow that to happen. That, you know, that we will challenge all of us to be able to come to the table and work in ways maybe we haven't done before. And we've been successful with that at the outside in table. But to your question, and again, Ellen and Mary Kay have really done a nice job of laying out that piece of it, but there is the politics of the silos, right? And the politics is when leadership turns a blind eye to or allows or encourages status quo protection or turf protection. And we're not going to do that with this board. We just aren't going to allow that to happen. This board is committed to challenging all of us. And I know the community is excited about that, right? They are really excited about the working in partnership in ways they've never been allowed to or ever had the opportunity to do that. And that's what this is intended to do too, is provide that opportunity that necessarily hasn't been there for, you know, organizations or systems that have been operating in silos to do the best they can, because there hasn't been that path to being able to work any different than that. And that's what this is hopefully going to allow us to do. So great question. I hope it drives some confidence that no one wants to see the silos. No one wants to see the status quo protection. No one wants to see this turf protection, and really is committed to doing better than what we have in the past.
Thank you for that addition, Commissioner McDonough. It isn't easy. We won't assume that, but the commitment of working in that way can make it possible. And in fact, that is what this board is working toward across many areas of our work, all areas of our work. I haven't forgotten you, Commissioner McGuire.
No, that's fine, Madam Chair. In fact, my colleagues asked such great questions. Most of my issues have been asked or responded to. I had circled silos as well, so I was really glad that Commissioner Fretham brought that up, and the answers were really helpful. So just thank you all for all of your work. I am really excited about this. I'm going to be repeating bold, nimble, flexible, and inclusive now throughout the day. And if you could just comment a little bit on the, we know that homelessness is a regional issue as well. And so we're putting this together as a county, which is important to do. And we're having a Met Council rep on there. So are all the counties, could you just talk a little bit more about, are all the counties doing this? So then there'll be this coalition of counties then that will come together. I'm guessing Met Council may have the same rep on all of these. Could you just talk a little bit about the regional aspect of this?
Madam Chair, maybe I could help answer that question a little. I've been involved in some conversations the past few weeks that could inform some of that. I'll do a brief homelessness update, Commissioner McGuire, at the end of today too, where we have a lot of positive news coming our way and momentum being built. And I'll get to do even more positive news, knock on wood, next week. But through conversations we've been having the last few weeks, part of what continues to be a reminder is we got to take care of our own house in terms of how we do this work here at home to be able to earn ourselves enough of a platform to be able to then advocate for what we need across the region and the state. And I know as a board, you've been pushing for that. I think a lot of what you're seeing through the presentation today is a recognition of where we have struggled to, at times, deliver in the areas where we do have spheres of control, or where we've not allowed for others to be a part of that table, or where we have not simply just done enough with what we can strategically and operationally. This aligns that. This doesn't mean necessarily that every other entity will look exactly the same around the region, but there is a renewed focus and effort that will be underway both around affordable housing and regional solutions to homelessness. And I personally believe, and I hope you would see the same after what you saw today, that this puts us on a platform and a standing to be prepared for those conversations and to do more than just be a passive participant there, but to really say, here is the vision right now of where we're trying to go, but here is where we simply cannot get there on our own.
If I could say, Madam Chair, I
Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
that. Thank you so much. And I think that, right. I mean, definitely we have to get our house in order, and I'm so grateful that we're, doing our own work. But then I think we are stronger, we'll be stronger as a region to really be advocating for the things we need at the state and federal level when there's obviously more of us. So I'm just glad to see all of that. And we'll be looking for.
Thank you very
more.
much. Great. Appreciate that question and the responses that we've heard, Commissioner McGuire, and to all our board members. I had not seen additional hands, but I do now. And so I'm going to stop and call on Commissioner Reinhardt.
Okay, thank you. And actually, my question is not about the presentation, but on our agenda, I think it's just a misprint probably, that it's supposed to be for information and discussion only, but it says award presentation only. Is there some sort of an award that's associated with this that I'm missing?
Thank you very much for your question, County Manager.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, surprise, we're award, no, I'm sorry, that was a mistake on the agenda. Apologies.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that there wasn't something that we were missing here that we needed to do something with. So thank you.
Yeah.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you. And yes, we're not doing this for the award only. However, thanks for correcting that. I'm getting a note that my internet is unstable, just letting you all know in case anything should happen. Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire stands at the ready. So I do not have additional hands up. This is extremely exciting. And I just want to thank again, both Ellen and Mary Kay for the work with us over time to understand the structure of the work as it has been proceeding, to help us to interpret issues with that structure and opportunities for bringing the work together in such a way as to raise all of the attention and opportunity for the work to a higher level. The structure that you've presented and the objectives that you have shared with us today and the plan for moving forward has been commented on by board members. We share enthusiasm for the work as you've described it. Of course, there are several questions and suggestions that we would ask you to continue to be in touch with us on as the work is designed. We do understand that we have appointments to consider and to make so that the work can begin on the schedule that you have presented. We appreciate all of your attention to the questions that have been asked, your responses, and your preparation to engage and share back with us responses additionally that could not be provided today. And finally, thank you for the bold and flexible and nimble and inclusive work and processes that you've shared. I am looking back to see if there are any additional questions. I don't see them. I'm going to call on the county manager, our deputy county manager, Ellen and Mary Kay, for any final comments in this area.
Madam Chair, I will do it. Madam Chair, I'll do it in this order. We'll go to Ellen and then we'll close out with Deputy County Manager Joanna Burke.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all again for taking the time to understand this. And it is a complex system. And I would love to assure all of you, and especially Commissioner McDonough, that the org chart will never take up a 2x4 piece of paper again. I'm not willing to say that because there is a lot of complexity between funding streams, and the scope of work is pretty significant if you think about really trying to focus upstream so that we're not having more people become homeless. So the work that the county is doing around landlords and evictions is so critical. And again, the county has stepped up in really important ways. And then all the way through dealing with shelter and then getting people stabilized with their mental health, with their physical health, with the supports they need to be successful in the community. I just want to add that we are here representing a very large group of folks who have informed this work, and especially county staff. You have a wealth of expertise and knowledge that we need to ensure are part of the foundation of this work going forward. And the new county department is essential. We're very much looking forward to working closely. I keep saying, and to Deputy County Manager Berg, that the work of the continuum should not be seen as an add-on. It should be completely integrated with the work of the new housing department. And so we're looking forward to meeting with Keith Lattimore next week. We rely on folks like Maria Weatherall and Lonnie Adalin and others who have been doing this for a long time. And I think they're excited for this next chapter because this is an opportunity to elevate their knowledge and expertise and commitment in new ways so that all of us collectively can be more successful, so that we don't leave any more HUD money on the table. And that more importantly, we're getting people the services and support they need. So thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing to work with the county.
Okay. I'd like to wrap up this section by simply reading once again the vision and mission of this work. We work together to create a community where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring, where we eliminate racial disparities and everyone is housed. That's the vision. And then the mission: to prevent and end homelessness by delivering effective, people-centered, integrated responses that are racially equitable and driven by community voice, advocacy, and learning. Once again, thank you to our county manager, deputy county manager, to the consultants, to staff leaders, and all who have been engaged in this work. A special thanks to Commissioner McDonough for your ongoing engagement and development of inclusion in development of the work that we are hearing reported on today. We will look forward to taking our next steps and advancing into a January opportunity to see this work launch together. Thank you very, very much. To our consultants, thank you for being here with us today. I hope I didn't skip anybody.
No, Madam Chair, we're
As
good. We're good to keep going.
Missing this work, I think I may have.
That's okay.
Go back.
We're good.
We're good?
We're good.
Thank you to all. Got it. Okay, so our next policy item is regarding the Lake Owasso residents application for day training and rehabilitation services presented by Social Services, but I'll call on the county manager first to tee this up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the second in a series of conversations that started with the Care Center a number of weeks ago. Similar to that, this is an information-only briefing at Lake Owasso residents, may be referred to as LOR for anyone watching the rest of the way as we go. And Director Ann Berry is here to talk about as they continue to look at ways to ensure they're maximizing revenue through their existing operation. That's what this does. I think there's one important thing just to note for the board on the way in. I want to be upfront about it. As we explored all of this opportunity with Deputy County Manager Hadeen and at the time Interim Deputy County Manager Saltis with Ann and her team at LOR, the question was, does anything here have an impact on longer-term conversations with the board and ensuring future dialogue and pieces that pre-COVID were in front of us as parts of dialogue? The answer is no. What this is trying to do is ensure that instead we are maximizing every resource available to serve those within our care and to do so as effectively as possible, particularly during this challenging time. And so this isn't meant to establish any sort of change in direction, short or long term. What it does instead is try to shore up our existing operation. And I think that's an important incremental step along the way. And since that's not clear fully in the RBA, I wanted to verbally share that with you. I'll turn it over to Director Berry.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Madam Chair and members of the board, I am Ann Berry, Director of Social Services, and Ryan just made my job very easy. A couple of things about this policy discussion. We've been providing day programs since the start of COVID, but even prior to COVID, we had a number of clients that we were working with or had been referred to us, and we couldn't place them in day programs. So we became responsible for the day programming. And so COVID just exacerbated that problem for us. We now are providing day programming for everyone who is with us. And this is really a very simple proposal. Right now, because we're not licensed as a day training program, our rates are substantially lower than if we'd be licensed. So we want to get that license from DHS to fully maximize our revenue. And as Ryan O'Connor has suggested and has stated, this is not to get into the business of day training programs for others in the community. This is just to serve people at Lake Owasso, and we'll keep reassessing it all along. It will be at least next spring or summer before our clients return to day programming. So we want to be able to maximize revenue in that time period. We're losing lots of money every day because we have to provide day programming, and we want to stop doing that. So it's a very, very simple proposal, and it's not any bigger than just serving the people that we are currently serving every day in day programs at Lake Owasso.
And so, Madam Chair, with that, thanks to Director Berry, we really wanted to just give a chance to ask any questions or excuse me, to answer any questions that the board may have if they'd like to ask them. The intent would be to come back with a request for board action next week or very soon, but we wanted to provide this space first.
And thank you for this opportunity to hear more about the development of the work. I do have a hand up from Commissioner Castillo. Commissioner Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Chair Carter, and thanks for that update. And I'm just wondering, and just want for clarification, when the permission for people to go back to day programming comes out because COVID is under control, is it our intent then to return people who were in previous programs to their programs? I'm just thinking about those small businesses that run programs are getting a pretty big economic impact right now, and they may be anticipating as when they can reopen and serve more people, they might, be factoring in those previous clients. And so is it our intent to return them then at that point?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, yes, all of those clients who can return, or residents who can return to programming will. In the community. I mean, we would much prefer that residents leave the facility to go to day programming. That's the whole point. That's the way statute reads, and it is programming away from your living environment. That's the concept underneath day programming. So yes, many would return. We do also have some older clients who really were finding it more and more difficult to go to day programming every day. So I think we'll assess every single resident in our program, and it will be the decision of the client, their guardian, their case manager about when to return, when's a safe time to return, but it is our goal to return people back to their community day programs.
Great, thank you, and I really support this effort in the interim, so thank you for that.
And thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I also support this. Director Berry, thank you so much for bringing this forward and being proactive on this and really, trying to maximize those dollars. I'm just curious, how many people are we how many people are at the care center now, and how long does it take to get this license? I'm just curious logistically, when might it happen?
Madam Chair, and then now Commissioner, so two parts to that question. We have 58 residents at Lake Owasso. One of our residents is still with his family throughout COVID. We actually had two clients who were with family members, and one has decided to move home permanently, and so is not coming back to us. So 58 residents, one living at home with family members. We haven't been taking any referrals. And we have about, all 57 would be getting day programming, except as you know, we do have some residents right now who are infected with COVID. We've had two houses that just came out of isolation, so they're gonna go back into day programming. So right now, I would say we have about 30 clients who are getting day programming. But I think your question was how many how many clients are with us at Lake Owasso. The second part of your question is the license could happen pretty quickly. There are not a lot of programs right now who are applying to be day training programs, and it's a separate part of DHS's structure to license programs. We have our application already. We meet all the criteria. They would do a virtual visit. They would talk to our staff, and it could happen really very quickly. We hope it happens really quickly. We would like the revenue. If you approve, we would like the revenue to start moving to us quickly.
Thank you. That was my next question. Revenue would then flow. It's not something that would take a lot of time, hopefully, that revenue would then come. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. I am just wondering about the application. I read through it, but one thing that I'm not sure of is whether or not it is clear that this is, does it have to be a blanket, or can you state somewhere in the letter or something that this is for, basically for right now, as far as all of the residents, all the day training has to be done through LOR, Lake Owasso residents, but that once some of the clients are able to go to outside day training and habilitation, that they will be able to do that. So what stops us, I guess, and not that we're going to do it, but if I were looking at this from the outside, I would say, well, what stops them from taking over that business and just continuing to do it instead of going to the small businesses out there and giving the clients that are at Lake Owasso the opportunity to be away from their home? Because, I mean, let's face it, right now we're all stuck at home too. And the idea of being able to get back out there and do things again is something that we want. And so, clearly other folks want that too, whether they're at Lake Owasso or at their own home. So is there something in here that is clear about the fact that for right now, I mean, you need the license regardless if you're serving one or you're serving 50 folks. So can you just help me out with that a little bit?
Sure can. Madam Chair and Commissioner, there's probably not a section in the application that gets to the issue of that flexibility in serving one client or 10 or 15 or 20. And so we can make it more clear in our application if it's not that this is just, first of all, it's just intended for our own clients at Lake Owasso. It's not for community clients. We're not getting into the business more broadly than just for Lake Owasso clients. And it's only, during this period of COVID, it's to serve clients who can't safely go somewhere else. Going forward, it would only be for clients who were rejected by other programs, by other day programs. So we can make that clear here and make that statement so that we all can come back to it. I mean, I'm saying these words and you can hold me accountable,
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm here forever. So let's put it in the application. Let's be clear about it, that our intent was simply our own clients during COVID. We maximize revenue, and then in the future, it really is only to serve clients who have been rejected by other day programs. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Use the word rejected because that sounds pretty harsh, but yes,
well,
I think there's some way to put the language in there that it makes it clear, or if it's an attachment to the application, because the application has to be uniform to whoever is applying for it. So however you can do that to get that message through there, I think is going to be important. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. I see Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire's hand is still raised. Did you have an additional question, Commissioner McGuire?
I'm good. I'm
Thank
good,
you.
Madam Chair. Thanks. I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much. So we very much appreciate the update. I look forward to hearing from you again with an action item related to this issue. There are no further questions, and thank you very much for being here with us. I will turn back to you and to the county manager for any last comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the discussion and that feedback on an addendum we can add to the application for clarity, and we'll move forward with a request for board action that'll be in front of you in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much. So those are our policy items, and I will turn again to the county manager for county connections.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few brief updates for you. In a happy news spot, I want to note that on November 23rd, Judd Freed, the Director of Emergency Management for Ramsey County, has taken office as the 2020-2021 President of the USA Council of the International Association of Emergency Managers. And so congratulations to Judd, and I know that he has participated for a long time in his work through his association and elevating the work of Ramsey County as a part of that, and also bringing lessons learned back our way as well. It's helped prepare us for our response during COVID-19 and this summer's civil unrest and other places where floods in the past. It's been invaluable. So congratulations to Judd. I know it's a big moment for him. I have a feeling he would have preferred a non-virtual ceremony, but we're all rolling with it this year in whatever ways that we can. On the housing stability front, I'm just going to note that our weekly housing stability update continues to go out every Friday. It has a number of different items in it. I assume that all commissioners and their aides are on that list. I'm going to double check that as a follow-up to today's meeting to make sure if you're not currently receiving that or have not signed up to get that email that you're going to get signed up to receive that email every week. So stay tuned. Starting this week, I'll make sure that happens. Whether it's the West 7th day space being done by the city of St. Paul, the work going on at Bethesda, the work happening through the community town hall at Luther Seminary. There's a lot underway, and I really want to appreciate all of the staff who have been a part of ensuring significant numbers of voices in the community have been able to be heard, both in local neighborhoods where dialogues have gone on, but more broadly across the entire community where we are working together to address these significant issues. I think it's also important for us to think through how to leverage the more than 800 people who have somehow had their voice heard through the many multiple processes going on, and how do we take people who may be mad at Ramsey County for making moves or may be very supportive and say, how do we transform that together into voices at the Capitol to ensure that we take those feelings and move forward collectively? Because through all of this, I don't know that we've heard one person stand up and say the status quo is okay. I think some people are surprised at the speed, and there's challenge to how implementation might look, but no one has said that homelessness is acceptable the way it currently exists, and we need their help in building a better tomorrow. Finally, on homelessness, as I mentioned, I hope to have a lot more to report next week. I just want to give an early thank you to the state of Minnesota and our partners everywhere else as well. The city of St. Paul has been a close partner. We've been looking at expanding isolation and quarantine space as our space has neared capacity. We've been looking at additional beds to get through this winter. We've been working with the city on additional beds in the near term at some of their facilities. All of these efforts remain in flight alongside the Bethesda and Luther conversations, and things are trending in a very positive direction. So I'm very hopeful that by the time we're together next week, I can share more on that front about what this winter looks like. But after many weeks and a lot of toiling back and forth and trying to figure this out, leaders have really come together in a way where it seems like we'll be able to have a better answer for this winter than we might have otherwise had. I'll end with a sad note, and you received an email last week. We had an employee pass away due to COVID-19 last week. His name was Dan Olson, and he worked in the county attorney's office. He was a child enforcement agent. And that's a tough moment for any organization to go through. And it was a tough email to write, and I've talked to many of you, and I appreciate the words that you have shared as well, and the many thoughtful people across this organization who have reached out and been a support to one another. The county attorney wrote a nice email to his team last week, recognizing and giving tribute to Mr. Olson's life and many of the great pieces. We included a memorial that will run in Ramsey News today, and I would ask you to take a moment and read it. It really lifts up all the good in our employees and reminds us how difficult of a time this is. And I'll stop there, Madam Chair. With that, I have no further updates.
Thank you very, very much for your update, for the good news about the work that we are doing, and also for sharing the sad news here publicly regarding the passing away of a Ramsey County employee from COVID. I just want to applaud first the work that has been done by staff and our leadership collaboratively with our communities, including our city partners, but also including a coalition of individuals who continue to work with us. That we are moving forward locally, participating regionally, and continuing to advocate with and work with our state is just good. You know, it is the best that we can do, and it is the must that we must do at such a time as this. So, once again, thank you. And then finally, our condolences go out to Dan Olson's family and friends as you struggle through this very, very difficult time for our nation, for our communities, and for your close circle. We do understand the grief that is being endured right now by many families, and specifically by yours. And we as a board extend our sympathies and our condolences. And please know how valuable and how much Dan's work and time has meant to us, and that you have shared him with us to address the needs of children and families in our community. And his work with the county is greatly appreciated. Once again, our condolences. I'm looking and I don't see any comments on the county connections. So we are going to move into our own board updates. And as we do so, I would like to get started thinking that it is important to share a few brief comments about communication that this board has received from residents and stakeholders in Ramsey County since the sheriff's Facebook post of a high-speed chase in St. Paul last week. Commissioners have been hearing from residents and constituents about their concerns that, in particular, St. Paul Police Department policy was violated. That policy providing guidance and setting limits for when and how police may engage in St. Paul in high-speed pursuits. Unduly, residents have provided their concerns that undue damage and danger was risked given the high-speed chase that occurred outside of St. Paul police policy. The concern is that repeated violation of this policy would again present undue risk. As Ramsey County Commissioners, we do take these concerns very seriously, knowing that high-speed chases in our neighborhoods do carry definite risk, including the potential of physical injury and or loss of life for our law enforcement officers, for individuals that they may pursue, and for innocent bystanders, if you will, who could be in cars, riding bikes, or walking, or even in wheelchairs along the side, including children. In responding to the emails and the requests for board intervention, I am sharing, and I imagine that other board members are, or maybe as well, that because the sheriff is an independently elected official, our sense is that it is incumbent upon the sheriff to engage directly with the constituents to whom he is accountable to ensure that he is protecting and serving in alignment with the values of those communities and the policies of their police departments. There is no current board plan to review the sheriff's policy on high-speed chases. The board will continue to review feedback that we receive from our communities and to determine whether there will be a future need to consider additional focus in this area. So thank you for allowing me to share that in advance. And I will now call on board members for your updates, beginning with Commissioner Fretham and ending alphabetically with Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Chair Carter, and thank you for your comments. I appreciate once again clarifying the lack of the board. The board doesn't have a role in oversight over the sheriff's actions as an independently elected official, and I think that's a question we continue to receive, and certainly I've heard from my constituents as well on that. So thank you for clarifying. And at the same time, I'll note to my constituents who have reached out, I appreciate your feedback, and we'll continue to engage with you on this issue if you reach out to me. In general, I know major updates from my boards and committees, so I'll keep it short. And I just want to add and reiterate my good thoughts and love and light sending to the family of Mr. Olson. It's hard to lose an employee, to lose a coworker, to lose a friend, and many in our organization may be feeling that loss right now and outside. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, Commissioner Metis-Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to make one comment on the issue of the sheriff. And I encourage my constituents to both reach out to the sheriff's office as well as to my office about concerns. I also have received comments that, you know, remember the sheriff represents law enforcement, and many members of my community have a fear of law enforcement. And so when they have concerns, to be told they have to tell him isn't working. And so I just want to say that I will continue to use the position of my office to advocate for my constituents who have concerns and to be their ally, because they are very much feeling bullied into accepting whatever he is doing without any opportunity to reflect in a negative way, because they really feel afraid of that situation. And since this high-speed chase went through much of my community and my district, there were a number of concerns. And so I just want to, share that though we are in a unique position that we don't have oversight, that we have to continue to use our position to put pressure on encouraging the sheriff to do the right thing for our community. So I just wanted to add that. I do have a few updates. I wanted to share that we had our Rice Street open house on the redesign of Rice Street. It was wildly successful, and want to say thank you to the folks who held that. And it has been a long process with a lot of community engagement, and really want to say congrats to the practicing artists who are doing the community engagement around the redesign. Folks came, they were excited, they were engaged. It was a very positive conversation. People are really feeling hopeful about what Rice Street can be. And so I want to thank Public Works and all of our partners who are working on that project, because it is something of a bright light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel for Rice Street. And so we're really looking forward to that. So just wanted to share. Also, I wanted to share that Commissioner Carter and I held the canvassing board meeting for a second time for the elections and recertified our elections. As you know, in the process of last week, when we previously certified, we called for an audit, and the audit discovered a box of ballots. And I think that this is why we do things. This is our process working. And so we never want to have that. It's a sinking feeling, especially for staff who work so hard. But given the huge voter turnout and the number of folks who were involved to discover something like this in the process, and we were able to move very, very quickly to notify candidates who may potentially be impacted. It did not change the election results for any race, but we still moved very quickly because we wanted to make sure that every legally cast ballot was counted, and that is indeed the case. And so I feel very confident in the recertification In addition, that all happened so quickly that it made it in time. The state will be certifying the official election results today. So we made it in within time. And I know that it was hard on staff. It's disappointing. Nobody wants to feel like they didn't do everything right, but we corrected ourselves. We are on the right path, and just wanted to thank everyone for doing it and for letting our processes work effectively. So just wanted to share that is done as well. And then I just wanted to also say there's a couple things going on. There's lots of things going on in the county, but wanted to do a special call out for additional assistance for our nonprofits and emergency relief. And that grant opportunity is open. We've heard a lot from nonprofits experiencing hardships because of COVID and lower donation rates. And so we do have that available now, and nonprofits can apply until the 30th. And of course, our economic development team that are working really hard on that, we appreciate that as well. The other thing I wanted to share is that the East Side, I want to get this right, the Payne Phelan is having their meeting tonight on electric vehicle sharing in the neighborhood. It's on Zoom at 6:30, and it is at paynephelan.org if you'd like to log in to participate. There's a lot of great things going on in the world and in Ramsey County in particular, and so just want to share some of those things. And finally, I briefly mentioned before, I had the opportunity to do some shadowing and got put to work at our safe space on Saturday evening, and wanted to say thank you to the staff who are working so hard to bring folks in from the outside and provide the services they are. I was there along with Council Member Jalali from the City of St. Paul and Steph Alexander, who works for us in our Housing Stability Office. And we asked a lot of questions. We learned a lot from both the people who were coming in for shelter in the evening, but the staff from Model Cities. And so I want to thank Model Cities for that opportunity and really for the experience. And I want to encourage any of you, if you have the opportunity, it is definitely worth the time to do that, because people are coming in pretty dire situations. They're coming in having waited or been out in the cold all day. They're coming in with, their only personal possessions, a small bag to a suitcase in lots of conditions. And they're quite frankly coming in and going to bed. I mean, they're really coming in from the outside to get a shower, a clean set of clothes, and to go to sleep. And to think about how many people that impacts each night. It was an alarming number, especially of single women that I saw. I have to say, even close to this work, I'm always surprised at who I'm seeing. Every race and culture was represented in our shelter at Safe Space. And so it really is important for us to understand who it is that we're serving and why it's so important. And an even more important, the number of folks who came in sharing their experience of having an addiction, and they wanted help. They were looking for resources to get clean. And so really the opportunity that we will have at Bethesda, and hoping everything goes smoothly with our permits, I think it's really, really important that their work we're doing, and want to congratulate all the staff that are moving so quickly to address this area of homelessness, and want to echo the county manager's gratitude to the state and to our city partners and to our nonprofit partners for really stepping up to help us address this huge need especially in this time, but really for the time moving forward, so that we can end homelessness in Ramsey County. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Castillo. I'll call on Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Chair Carter. A couple things. One, a couple more comments on your lead in here as far as the high-speed chase of the sheriff the other night. I think Commissioner Mattis-Castillo's point of we as individuals and as a board are elected by the same people that elect the sheriff. And we do have a duty to be the voice of people that do not feel that they are being heard by whether it's the sheriff or the county attorney, other electeds in this county. And also, I feel really strongly, we have a duty to be transparent and expose that transparency when decisions are being made in this county that are inconsistent with the values of this county, that are inconsistent with the work that's been done in partnership with community, with city partners for many years to continue to build on those partnerships and to continue that work together. And when we have an individual that chooses to operate outside those partnerships, disregard those values in our community, and dismiss the leadership of so many that have worked so long to make Ramsey County a county of excellence, we do have a duty to be transparent in calling that out. I would like to share a good news story. Yesterday, I was able to participate in a Zoom a meeting that Workforce Director Ling Becker pulled together with all the organizations that were successful in grant funding through our CARES workforce dollars that her and her team turned around amazingly. We've had some reports Ling shared with you, well over 90 contracts. That money got deep into the community. We really were able to get that money into experienced and well-connected organizations, but also some new organizations that necessarily haven't worked with Ramsey County before, but are trusted in the communities that they serve. And yesterday we got to hear stories of their successes. We got to hear stories and the impact that that money has had on youth in our community. And we also got to start the conversation about what happens after that CARES funding is gone, and how do we keep the wind in the sail to continue to have impacts and help support the youth in our community. So it was a great moment to be a part of that. I committed to all the folks on that call that I would bring this back to the county board and share the good work that they've been doing in our community. It was great to hear those stories. And I also got to meet 3 of the staff that worked with Ling in helping not only turn around those grants and turn around that money, but then help and work with these organizations as they made these investments in our youth and our community. So all in all, it was a great, good news opportunity for me to be a part of. And hopefully the board shares the same amount of pride that I do in the work that has gone on to have an impact in our community with these kids. And it's all throughout our communities, each and every one of our districts. The diversity of these organizations was just amazing. Again, I think I just talked about transparency. I want to, on the other side of this, really recognize that Ling and her team have understood the values that this board has set this county on, and being inclusive and being diverse in how we build those relationships in our community, and leveraging the trust of individuals and organizations within these communities. And that was demonstrated yesterday at that meeting that I was able to participate in. So thanks to Ling and her team for the work they're doing, but most importantly, thanks to all the community partners that are working with our kids each and every day. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stop and turn it over to the next commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough, for your report. And the next commissioner would be Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to give a bit of a legislative report, because we're not in session now, but the governor is probably is going to be calling him back into another special session, hopefully earlier than originally thought, probably by December 1st. So, or the November forecast has been moved from December 3rd to December 1st to accommodate an earlier special session. So we're thinking around Friday, December 11th would be maybe when they would do another special session to talk about hopefully providing financial support to businesses and workers. That's something that the governor's been talking about. He wants to work with the legislature on that. And they all want to agree in advance and pass this package at the next special session. So they may talk about property tax relief, direct cash assistance, and sales tax forgiveness as possible ideas for assistance. So this is good news that the governor is going to be working with the legislature to hopefully pass some things this year yet for help for our businesses. So that's a bit on the legislative. And just to let everyone know that our team continues to work hard and follow all of these issues. And thanks to Jenna Rourke and Melissa Finnegan for all of that. Also, we all know about the COVID Aware Minnesota new app that the governor is encouraging everyone to be a part of. And so I just also encourage people to be a part of that for contact tracing and helping combat this virus. So thanks for that. Just a couple of things that I had going on this week. A few. First of all, I want to give my congratulations to Judge Fried. I'm lucky to serve on a committee at NACO with him and know that he is well loved and revered among the country. And I'm congratulate him on his new position there as he works nationwide on his emergency services. The Transportation Advisory Board met, and we have two big issues that we're dealing with. One is the arterial BRT, of which we have the Rice-Robert proposal in, and we're hoping to get that to rise to the top. So I'll be asking for some help with that. We're going to be engaging community groups and things. That is not going to be decided until next year in the coming months, but we're working on that issue. So more to come on that, but that is definitely, there's a number of proposals that will be out there, and we just hope that the East Metro one of Rice-Robert raises to the top. The other issue that we're dealing with is the regional solicitation, and we will be voting on that at our next meeting. And that's how we decide what projects get funded of the millions of dollars that we get from the federal government. And so we've got, there's a number of different funding scenarios that we're looking at. And so that'll be voted on at our next meeting. Also, the library board met, and just to let people know, we all got the letter that our library director, Jill Boldenau, is going to be moving on to another position and another place. And so we'll be doing a search for a library director. Also, one of our long-term employees, Lynn Wyman, is retiring. There'll be more about that as she actually retires, but that is coming in the next month. Also, MELSA, the library, the Metropolitan Library Association met, and we're doing we considered our budget, and we are doing a performance review of our executive director. So that's in process. The Suburban Ramsey Family Collaborative met, and we had, oh my gosh, a great meeting. We had an annual meeting and our Joint Powers Board meeting. And just to let you know, we had an amazing discussion on sharing power, which I think everyone should, it would be such a great concept for all of us to look at and listen to this group. Marcus Pope from Youth Prize, June Blue from M Health Fairview, our own Keith Allen from M Health, and Anthony Taylor from the U of M Cultural Wellness Center did a panel discussion on sharing power with community groups. And it was really phenomenal. So I'm just gonna put that out there that's a great, it was a great panel discussion and a great afternoon for the Suburban Collaborative. And that I can send out the notes on that when they come. Then the last thing I'm going to talk about is, well, our extension committee met, and our farm family, we're looking for a farm family. So if anybody has any ideas, we love Ramsey County farm families. So send them forward for that. Also, my last comment, Madam Chair, is the Blue Ribbon Committee on Metropolitan Council Governance and Transportation Issues, and we're getting closer to providing recommendations on that. And so we've been commenting that it's not going to be a revolution, but an evolution. So we're not going to make any huge strides, but we are talking about making some changes, and these would involve things like staggering terms, not having an elected council, but staggering terms. And then we want to set some priority areas that we think the Met Council should look at, or that the legislature should look at if they want to do something with the Met Council, some things they could look at. And then also, because we know there's going to be a huge financial crunch coming up, and how we think the Met Council and transportation specifically can work its way through that. So I'll just keep you posted on that. Our final meeting is the next time. We're going to be getting a draft proposal that we'll get to look at before our next meeting. We have another one on the books if we need it after the next one, but those recommendations will be coming through. So I may send them out to all of you, and you can look at them and see what you think. But it's been an interesting committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to give my condolences to the Olson family. It's been a tough week for me personally. I think I've attended a funeral every week for the past couple of weeks, and it's always sad to hear when one of our good employees and somebody I've worked with passed away. That's all for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also echo the condolences to Dan Olson's family and friends and coworkers in the county attorney's office. I look forward to reading more about him. I did know him, but there's always more that you can understand about a person. And speaking of that, I noticed in the Pioneer Press on Sunday, I think it was, they had 26 stories of people that have died of COVID. And I read every single one of them because I think too often we look at the numbers and the numbers get bigger and bigger. And it's sometimes you have to be brought back to reality that every single person was loved. And who they are matters. Who they were matters. And the impact that they had on their families and the community in whole really makes a difference. And so I think it's important to sometimes sit back and say, okay, you know, this is so much more than just numbers. And as those numbers get bigger, it makes it harder. But each individual matters. I would like to talk a little bit about the canvassing board and the amazing work of our staff. And to say that it wasn't that something went wrong. It was that our process went right. And we acted, and the canvassing board and everybody just stepped up to the plate and said, okay, our review system, our audit system worked, and we will take care of this. And so to me, it's unfortunate that that happened, but it shows that we've got so many protections built into our system that we were able to catch it and fix it before the state results were certified. So amazing work, and really appreciate all the work that was done there. And being one of the people that was impacted by it, it was also something that was important to see that every vote counted. And there were a number of votes from my district. I would also like to, there have been so many things that have been happening, but the one thing that I want to also just want to touch base on is the community engagement process with the city of Maplewood regarding the 2 parcels of land in South Maplewood, one just south of Lower Afton Road and the other just north of the Ramsey County workhouse. And I say it that way because there are 2 parcels there, one of which happens to contain the ponds of Battle Creek. And so I think it's important that we understand that this is a community engagement process that is hopefully going to be very robust, just like the one on Rice and Larpenteur. And it's the same consultants. And so I have great confidence in them moving forward with how we can figure out what's going to take place there. And also have full confidence in whatever comes forward, that we'll be able to work with that and work with the city of Maplewood. There were a number of questions that were raised at that first meeting. And, you know, whenever there's a first meeting, there's always lots of questions. But I think that, you know, we'll be able to work with the city of Maplewood and Perkins and Will to be able to answer the questions that really were directed to the county, but that's not what the purpose of this particular meeting was. But I think that there's definitely ways that we can communicate so that people understand what the vision, mission, and goals are of the county, why certain decisions were made, how we can move forward and come up with something that I think will work for, hopefully, well, it has to work for everyone in the community. And I do know that, I mean, it actually reminded me of the commitment that the suburbs, and particularly Maplewood, has made to see that Mayor Abrams is part of the affordable housing, mixed income housing, and the homelessness issue, and trying to bring that forward as well, and the values that they have as Maplewood. So I, again, wanted to make sure that I talked about it as the two parcels, because there's much more at stake here than just what happens to the ponds of Battle Creek Golf Course, but there's wetlands, protected wetlands that people had questions about because it wasn't obvious that those are protected. What's developable, what isn't. What we have done as far as the addendum for that I had proposed, and moving that to next spring in March when the recommendations are out. All of that is information that we need to somehow communicate, and I know that we're going to work through that so that we can make sure that people have the information so they can get back and really focus in on what do we want here? How is this going to be better for Maplewood, and how is it going to fit into what Ramsey County wants, what Maplewood wants, and move forward with it? And so, again, I think that, for our first meeting, there were over 100 people that were part of this. And I was there to observe and listen, I think, which is the appropriate role for Ramsey County. And it was hard not to say, oh, well, but we've got information on that, because that's something, again, that will come through the consultant and through the city of Maplewood. But the virtual things that are happening right now are pretty fun to watch, and to see all the little sticky notes and everything that was going on was it's pretty incredible, actually. So looking forward to more on that as we move through that process, and coming forward with recommendations through an inclusive community process that I know this board has embraced in this area, but also in all of the other community engagement things that we are doing. It's such a difference from, and not only because of COVID and this being virtual, but such a difference from a few years ago when, we held a couple of open houses on things, and that was kind of about it. The community engagement process, the purposeful, thoughtful way that we have gone through being inclusive in the community engagement process, I think, is refreshing and very needed for us to make good decisions. So I want to say thank you, and more to come on that, but I wanted to give you an update on that first meeting so that you would know that it was kicked off and lots of interest, and we'll see what happens from there. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Reinhardt. Can you all hear me? Just a nod? Thanks. Okay. I am always amazed at how much is going on and how much attention is being paid to so many items on so many different levels across Ramsey County, even as we are in COVID. Thank you all for your reports and for the updates on the work. I also want to share just a few things today. There's a lot going on, but I'm going to manage the number down. First of all, I want to congratulate and thank all of us, all who have worked on it, all in the community who have engaged in planning for, and celebrate today that the Dale Street Bridge is open. Yay. All right. So we have traffic going in both directions, down both side streets, Concordia and St. Anthony, back and forth on Dale. There is some work continuing, ancillary work that we'll be able to continue while keeping the road open until winter. And then next spring, there will be some additional work that will occur on the southern part of Dale Street. But it's so wonderful to have the renewed bridge, which does celebrate the community, which does provide for safety and traffic enhancements, which provides a respectful walk across and an opportunity for all modes of transportation to thrive in that area. I just want to thank everyone who was involved. Thanks to all. I also want to share that I was there with Commissioner Reinhardt and with Commissioner Matis Castillo at the first engagement session with the city of Maplewood. Truly appreciate that 100 people showed up to share their thoughts and to participate in a creative process that the consultant brought forward. And congratulate all of you for this board's consideration for genuine, thoughtful, inclusive and broad community engagement that will proceed as we do determine the best opportunities for future for these parcels in Maplewood. I also attended the community engagement with St. Anthony Park communities around the consideration of the use of the Luther Seminary, rooms at Luther Seminary for homelessness. Over 200 people showed up, participated, asked very, very good questions, expressed their concerns and support for moving forward in that area. Staff has presented a summary, and that work, we will get an update on the timeline for that work shortly. I also should share that I have been participated in a third meeting with DHS, focusing not only on the budget and potential cuts that will occur in the Department of Human Services, but also on the potential for redesign and having counties at the table in any redesign thoughts that may come up due to the need to actually adjust the budget in this coming year and potentially coming years. So that work considers, and additional meetings will happen in the December timeframe. I do want to congratulate Judd Freed, who's already a leader at the National Association of Counties and very visible in national leadership and now in international leadership. We are so very proud of him, thankful to have him here in Ramsey County and for the work that he does across the country and now across the world in that regard. Also want to once again circle back to mention the congratulations to Jill Boldenau for her next steps, and also repeat the condolences for the family of Dan Olson. I was able to provide thoughts and condolences through County Attorney John Choi to the entire area of people that have worked with Dan. I am so thankful that commissioners across the board today have also expressed those thoughts. We do have a couple of workshops that will occur today, but I think our next, after our meeting is over and adjourned, we will be following with HRA meeting immediately after our board meeting. It's 11:18. So we're going to start that at 11:25. And then we have a county board workshop scheduled on the census. I have concerns, but we'll figure out whether or not we're going to be able to fit that in before lunch today. We do need to hear about it. So I anticipate that we'll go immediately into that after the HRA meeting.
Madam Chair.
And then we have a 1:30 county board. Whoops. Yes.
My only ask would be maybe we could start 30 seconds after this meeting if commissioners are okay to the HRA meeting, which could buy you, if the board is amenable, an hour if you went from 11:30 to 12:30 on the workshop. If not, I would like to communicate as soon as possible to community members who are waiting to be a part of that we're a part of our census work if we're going to reschedule it.
Okay. So could I hear you say that once again? You want us to convene immediately the HRA meeting and then follow with the workshop, or the other way around?
I would just suggest we don't need to take a 5-minute break. We could immediately convene the HRA meeting.
Got it. All right. So we will do that. We'll go into the HRA meeting immediately following this meeting. I know that we're missing our break, but it does appear to be necessary. And so with that then, I see no hands raised. We're going to conclude our board meeting and ask that Commissioner Matis Castillo would move us directly into the HRA meeting. This board meeting is adjourned.